Well, the Will Steger Foundation is really, first of all, thrilled to be a Power Shift. One of our main goals was to help get as many high school students as we could from the state of Minnesota out here. And so we have 25 students here representing 7 different schools, which is pretty awesome. And they did a lot of fundraising to get themselves here, and they're all part of a network they call Yeah Minnesota. We're an official sponsor, but it's a youth-run organization, which stands for Youth Environmental Activists Minnesota. There's an exclamation point in there. And then we're also here supporting the statewide network. We're an active partner in that because we feel like that's really, really important. There's been a great start, but we need to keep building that momentum. And then we're really active and committed to building the regional network. So that's also been really successful the past year, but we again want to keep bringing in more and more students to that network. And then we also want to go to Copenhagen, and we want to bring the Midwesterners with us. So we're excited to have more of a heartland presence, because you can't move the U.S. until you got the heartland there. So we want to work with Sustain Us, we want to work with 350 Energy Action Coalition to make it happen. So it's really exciting to see all these groups meeting around us. There's probably about 10 different groups breaking out around this room, and I think it really illustrates all the exciting outcomes that we're going to see here in Minnesota. Summer of Solutions is one of them, so a student-run peer teaching summer kind of camp, training camp. Last year we just did it in St. Paul. This year it's going to be all over the state. There's talk about building a bike share program in the Twin Cities. There's a lot of interest in getting toxins out of our waters and out of our water bottles, you know, the whole connection to healthy bodies as well as healthy ecosystems. There's a big interest in lobbying for the Clean Cars bill that's up right now in the state of Minnesota. There's a big lobby day next week. And there's a lot of interest too in international participation. So we're going to be talking about that as well.
So basically what's happening here is that different participants from all across Minnesota are breaking out into different discussions about sort of what they think the most significant thing we could do together is. And they're really figuring out sort of what are the action steps, what do we need to do, how do we actually make this happen, so that at the end when we do report backs we'll have a whole different set of different really key actions that we can take, and we can actually decide how we're going to work together. This is using a method called open space technology, which is really focusing on letting people like self-sort and like identify what's most creative for them and like really find their fit. I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, there's folks over here, you know, working on policy and like how youth can affect that kind of thing. Over in the back, there's a Summer of Solutions group figuring out how we actually implement this in the Twin Cities next summer. There's an environmental justice discussion, a community energy discussion, you know, focusing on like bike shares and things like that. These are all very actionable steps that, you know, now we suddenly have teams of like 10 to 30 people on each of these topics who are actually really like focused on them. So
we all worked on the Obama campaign, and what we talked about was using this sort of student organizing network and all the volunteer phone lists that we have to do some coordinated lobbying efforts for specific bills as they come up on a monthly basis in Congress. So we're going to hook that up across the country, but in Minnesota especially.
All right, in this corner we talked about bike sharing and alternative transportation. We decided to try and organize a call-in write-in day to promote bike sharing, bike lanes, bike culture, and also talked about creating kind of like a support network for campuses trying to create their own bike sharing programs and how to expand from campus-wide to citywide and whether that's feasible, and just kind of all the ins and outs of creating a bike sharing program for people every day. And also we talked a little bit about kind of the infrastructure of public transportation and alternative transportation in metro areas.
We talked about the President's climate commitment. Important steps are, one, to get it signed, because we had one school that doesn't have it signed yet in our group. And other steps are to create a mechanism of information between the administration and the students, not just the administration telling the students what they're doing, but the students telling them what they want them to do, and then to brainstorm ideas of exact measures to take and what each school needs to do to hold their administration accountable.
And so to enable them to empower themselves, we want to be able to give them green jobs. And our solution, the next step for this, is to promote Hire, who is already working to meet this end, advocating for green jobs. And as far as what we can do immediately is find environmental injustices happening in our communities and try and see what we can do about those, launching campaigns for people in our areas.
All right, we talked about the Summer of Solutions. We talked about mostly the St. Paul program, which is going to be really good, happening this summer. And we've got a lot of people really excited in the group. They're going to have one-on-one conversations with the people who are putting together it right now and tell all their friends. And everyone, including all of you, is going to go to summerofsolutions.org to check it out further and tell your friends. And it's going to be great. Woo!
So I would describe the Summer of Solutions as an opportunity for students around the country to take an opportunity after school sessions end to really critically look at how they can make an impact in the communities they live in. The Summer of Solutions also provides an opportunity for students to partner with existing nonprofits, government organizations, and corporations so that we can work together, youth and others alike, to really try to make a difference on the things that are at most risk right now for our communities. Our goals are to create a model for how we tackle things like climate change, like unemployment, like an energy crisis, and how we apply that to our communities on the ground.
I think everyone hopes to go to Copenhagen. We're all going to try our best to fundraise and send at least a couple of people there. I think the other thing that Senator Klobuchar said that got a lot of cheers was that she intended to go to Copenhagen and be really prepared for the U.S. to be a leader in climate change, and I think that's something that we're all really looking forward to seeing her do.
Well, I think people have begun to realize that we can't do this alone. We have to be leaders. We don't want to be followers, because when you're a leader, then the technology is in this country. Then you have really get the green jobs that you want. So I think a lot of the talk will be about how this can really be, if done right, can really help our economy as we move along and get the businesses we want to have here. And then I think people are looking for leadership across the world, and I think they've seen this now in a very short few months in Barack Obama, and I think that's going to greatly help us to bring other countries along in Copenhagen.